You beautiful people, it is not too late. Go to duckfeed.tv/duckstream. It is happening right now.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is, for that is our cursed podcast.
Does it just get more and more arcane? And this week we are reading your responses to the Grand Archives. Great Archives? Grand Archives. There we go.
Grand Archives.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
On the balance, I'll call them great.
They're okay.
We talked a lot of sugar about a lot of parts of it. So I would say it's pretty good.
Yeah.
The good archives.
I'm a great man, but not a good man, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. The archives are great because the archives are good.
Yes.
And before we move on, we want to say thanks again to Josh Garrity, from the Cane and Rinse podcast, Sound of Play, and General Gentleman and Scholar.
Yeah. CaneandRinse.com.
Yeah, love that guy.
Yeah.
But we did let him go for this part, as usually we do, and also there are time differences in play.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get us started here with some follow-up from previous areas. Ali says, "Hey guys, regarding the pilgrim butterflies, in the Japanese guidebook, it mentions them as an enemy type that is abyssal, like the pus of men. I don't know the lore significance of this, but it might assist in getting some connections."
Yeah. I included that just because I didn't know there was actual text that supported them being abyssal, aside from the fact that they're pilgrims and pilgrims from Londor, Abyss, etc., etc. But it's good to know that is text somewhere.
Oh, totally. Especially since they've also been referred to as dragons, right? Like in the American guidebook, they call them undead dragons or something like that. And the abyssal dragon is a tantalizing dangling thread from the DLC as well.
Yes.
So again, just making a playground of connections, like a web where everything fits, like that might end up playing out. It might not, but it is definitely good to know that have that actually supported by text.
Convergy-worgy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dominic writes, "Your talk about the Dragon Slayer armor's music reminded me of a question that I've always had about Souls music. It's highly operatic style, and accompanying giant boss enemy can sometimes distract me from noting that it sounds like there are lyrics in the chanting. I'm no opera expert, but certain opera pieces can often feel like I'm just listening to random singy yelling. But obviously, there's lyrics in there telling a story. So the question is, do you guys know of any actual discernible lyrics in the boss music? If not lyrics, then are there words or any meaning at all to the chanting?" I think that we've got a whole bunch of one-winged angel going on here.
Yeah.
Or the beginning of
before One Winged Angel actually talks about his thing.
Right.
Talks about his name over and over.
Yeah.
Like Dragon Slayer armor.
Yeah. Yes. Just sings about how he feels. I think.
Josh Groban?
No, sorry, you're not gonna. He's not here right now.
Okay.
But oh gosh. Yeah, or like the beginning of Final Fantasy VIII, where like it just begins with like Phythos or whatever it is, like just nonsense.
Yeah, Libris, like whatever that song's called.
Yeah.
I don't think that's it's actual literal terms. To be fair, this is a good question because it never occurred to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I don't think it is though is because I would see this as somebody who when we prepare for the show, I read everything I can about a boss.
Mm-hmm.
If there were meaningful lyrics in any of the bosses, I think it'd be a thing.
Yeah.
I think it is just kind of mouth sounds in
body.
Okay. That is kind of a good question, and I also don't feel bad about feeling like that about opera because opera also just sounds like mouth instrument to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it does not sound like words.
They're also most of them are also in different languages.
That's probably all languages sound like mouth instrument to me. Mouth instrument.
Cool.
Like the California scavenger beetle uses its mouth instrument to tear apart the wings of it sounds like a term. So.
There's a third piece of follow up here, but it's more of just a thing. So Michael wrote in with some a little bit late feedback to about Lothric Castle, which didn't really fit in here, but mentioned having a pretty serious operation this summer. Michael is a longtime fan and somebody who has written in the past. We wish you the best, buddy.
Yeah, I wish you a swift recovery.
Yep.
And I hope everything is doing all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Responses, Gary.
Yeah. So moving on to Luke. Luke says, a fun area to play through, but not a huge amount to discuss beside my friend Andy's genius lore observation, Curse hates wax.
Can you just rip that page out of his notebook and mail it to me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Curse do hate wax.
Who is Wax Dog?
Who is Wax Dogs? Curse do hate wax.
Who waxed my dog?
Yeah, who waxed my curse? Who waxed my 1976 Chevy Curse?
Oh my god, I would totally write a Chevy Curse.
I would totally do a Chevy Curse.
Oh,
because they're always like, it wouldn't be a curse. It'd be like a like Cursegra or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they always, it's not what is the good example of that? It's not integrity. It's an Integra.
Oh yeah.
It'd be that kind of thing.
Yes, I would do whatever I needed to make that into my own personal Dragula.
Yeah, I would like, have I ever mentioned this to you before? There's not a lot here, so I probably haven't mentioned it to you, but one of my good friends, Noah, who I think you met when you were out here.
Yeah.
He is super into hearses, which is the closest thing to driving a curse.
Okay.
And professionally makes models of them and owns one and is like into restoring them and stuff.
Oh wow.
So when I've driven around with him, we're driving around in this beautiful old restored hearse.
I've been to Noah's house. If there was a hearse there at that point, why didn't I see it?
I don't think he had one at that point because it's one of the they're not super expensive, but they're not great cars.
Yep.
To have they're like an affectation on wheels that happens to be an affectation that I really like.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a sensible car decision. So it was before he got one, but he has one now, and it's really cool to see.
Nice.
All the little parts, the curtains, things like that, the different kind of special bits of it.
Speaking of affectations, this is a true thing about me. In my car CD player, you know what's in there? Halloween noise soundtrack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Halloween
That's
sound CD. I never listened to it, but I was like, okay, I'm not. Who uses their CD player anymore? What am I going to put in here just in case somebody switches the CD?
That's very funny. I appreciate that joke quite a bit. Somebody clicks the little button, and it's just like, "Do the children tell you not to come to this house?"
Yep, I got it at a Goodwill for $1.50.
I'm way into that. This is a good joke, Cole.
David writes, I'm a candlehead. I hope I wasn't the only person who tried to see if you could light your head or I'd feel really dumb. I still hate the claymore wielding little shit, and that sage is either a fun game of cat and mouse or an irritating chase depending on if you have ranged options or not. D&D party was fun, but guys, you don't leave home without a cleric.
I'm so glad they don't have a healer. Imagine they had one of those healers from section, somebody's buffing them and shit.
They've got representation from all the pillars except for the priest.
Yeah.
I did try and light myself. I pulled out a torch because I always have a torch in the offhand, or a real quick way, quick switch.
Providing light.
Yeah.
We get
it. Okay, sorry.
Explain it
Yeah. No, I just but I pulled out the torch thinking okay, you can burn leeches off of yourself. I wonder if there's something I can do with this, but no.
And it would be cool if you could but it's okay that you can't as well.
Yeah.
It's a really striking kind of image. I can't help but kind of wish that it actually just coated whatever helmet you were wearing with wax.
Right.
Because the Xanthus crown, dog. The fact that you could dip the Xanthus crown in that and then come back with a little tiny wax head.
Mm-hmm.
A gigantic so candle, one of those big Yankee motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I would have been into. So, yeah. So Arthur says, "Well, I generally enjoyed Dark Souls 3. Many areas didn't grab me at first. The Grand Archives did, however. Cathedral of the Deep did as well, and they share some similarities design-wise, in my opinion. I would agree with you there. That's an aside from Gary. There are others that can better speak to the lore, but I found this area to provide a nice challenge. It has a little of that Demon Souls 1-1 feel to it with the use of shortcuts, and it doesn't hand out bonfires every 20 feet, although the starting Grand Archives bonfire feels about 20 feet from the one that precedes it. I enjoyed the challenge and felt genuinely rewarded for my efforts with each unlocked shortcut. The verticality somehow made the area feel more like a tightly designed level than just some sprawl filled with encounters. Again, similar to Cathedral of the Deep for me. Borrowing from the Duke's Archives, one of my favorite areas from Dark Souls 1, probably played on my nostalgia as well. But in the end, I found the Grand Archives a nice mix of secrets, challenging encounters, and rewarding exploration. To top it all off, it culminated with my favorite Lord of Cinder fight.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, Arthur.
Yeah, and the Cathedral of the Deep comparison is right on there. Like
Mhm.
as far as like the really, really awesome, tightly designed levels, like Cathedral of the Deep is really, really good.
Yeah.
In this game, and this is the first time we've run into it, because as much as I liked Lothric Castle, I liked some levels after that. I liked Irithyll, but in my enjoyment of Irithyll was mostly like the beauty of it and aesthetics. It wasn't so much that kind of like super interwoven.
Mhm.
Tight space, kind of looping back on itself, kind of thing. And this is an example of one of those areas. Same like Undead Settlement is kind of like that as well. Like does that really well.
Yeah, like Undead Settlement, like that nails sprawl in a way I don't think the series has done before.
Yeah. Like it does loop back on itself. There are shortcuts and the like. Yeah. But it also,
it
kind
feels
of
so
out.
expansive. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a really good example. And we're going to get to this. That's all very. One nice thing about the DLC. Is that it kind of does examples of both. Like it does like a microcosm of the really nice kind of tightly controlled area and a microcosm of kind of the shitty sprawl design philosophy. And like you get to see both. So in a lot of ways it serves as kind of a little shorthand.
Yeah.
For this. Oh.
Yep. Matthew writes, the Grand Archives may be my favorite level from a design standpoint in all of Souls. I really love the verticality of the level, along with the multiple shortcuts bringing you back to certain paths. I like the reappearance of the Crystal Sage, as he now acts more as an environmental hazard as opposed to a normal enemy, way better than how the Flexile Sentry was reused in Dark Souls 2. The D&D party upstairs is okay, as usual, but the crowning part of the level is the giant set piece leading up to the Twin Princes. A long rampart filled with tons of enemies protecting the prince. And when you finally get there, you're presented with a great two-stage boss fight, where stage 1 involves learning the moveset and stage 2 builds on that. And Lothric is super creepy. Did I mention that? You didn't, but I agree.
Yeah,
but creepy in a
he's
sympathetic
creepy and
way.
Pitiable. Yeah.
Got a lot of sympathy for Lothric.
I agree. Other than I think that the gauntlet leading to him from a gameplay perspective is just like a signal to run.
Yeah.
Something I had this thought, especially, and again, I hate to keep bringing up the DLC, but it's the most recent, like, fresh thing in my mind, because I ran past a lot of shit in the DLC.
Yeah.
Are the designers ever trying to signal that that's the right thing to do? I think that probably happens from time to time.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to have like encounters that are balanced to actually clear them.
Right.
But there are a couple parts in the DLC where it's like, oh, you're not supposed to fight this. It has that kind of feeling to it. And I'm of mixed minds on that.
Yeah.
If
they are signaling it, they're not signaling it strong enough, especially since it's not something that's, it's not the way that I've engaged with the series in the past. Like the way that they will signal it is, oh, like this is just way too hard, so it'd be most expedient for you to get past.
Yeah.
Just move.
Yeah, and that doesn't, you can do better than that to kind of show that you're supposed to run past. And like, cue a bunch of people saying that they fought everything on the bridge and was fine with it. And like, okay, like that's fine. Like I did clear it the first time. It's just whether it's like fun or tedious to do so. And I found clearing that, not the bridge, the stairway kind of tedious.
Yeah.
But from an image perspective, like it is really striking.
Oh yeah.
Because it does look like it's like, oh shit, this is everyone's forces, or all of the forces kind of stacked against me to try to stop me. And that is something I will respond to from kind of just a shock and awe perspective.
Yeah.
Every time. Dakota says, the gargoyles on top of Lothric's rooftops were mentioned near the end of one of the last episodes, and it got me thinking a bit, so I figured I'd share my thoughts. As I talk about in my writing about Sullivan, and there's a link that I'll put in the show notes, I believe that Pontiff Sullivan was once a scholar of the archives. He also discovered the profaned capital below the tundra of Irithyll. Assuming that the gargoyles are somehow related to the profane flame, judging from their weaponry, it can also be assumed that the gargoyles were present there when he found it. If they were related to the profane flame and Sullivan, I believe it could be possible that Sullivan brought them up from the profaned capital to serve as guardians of the rooftops of the archives. Maybe they even came of their own volition. Either way, it's interesting to think about, if not strongly supported by text. Yeah, even though like the chronology is what gets me there,
Mhm.
because everything that we have suggests that Pontiff Sullivan is no longer associated with Lothric if he was.
Right.
If there's not outright animosity there, which is suggested by him sending like kind of like Outrider Knights.
Yeah.
To
By sending
Lothric,
his monster men over.
yeah, then him guarding this thing feels like that could be the case if we went back in time to when he still lived there and
Mhm.
everything. But as such, it doesn't seem like something that he would have a vested interest in protecting. I'd be more likely to believe that he sent them like his Outrider Knights. Like they were not there to guard the rooftops. They are another invading force.
Yep.
But it's a weird, like Sullivan having control over the gargoyles as an army. Like they don't appear in Irithyll.
Mhm.
They don't appear guarding like his pet god that that he would have reason to keep people away from.
Yeah.
They only appear in that one other area before. So like a lot of things like possible,
Mhm.
but I don't find it particularly satisfying. Not that's not personal to the idea to you or anything. It's just I don't find that particularly a satisfying solution.
It's a connection, it's there, and like it's hard to disagree. Yeah. Like the thing that like I think that I'm avoiding kind of saying or addressing is like, well, maybe From just wanted to have a rooftop gargoyle encounter and the implications of where these things show up be damned. Like let's just have them there.
I didn't even think about it being like, we already associate fighting gargoyles on rooftops.
Yeah.
From the series.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and that definitely happens, right? And even in entries that we're kinder to, like that is why there are Grave Wardens in Earthen Peak.
Mhm.
Like they sometimes just need to fill a combat role.
Yeah.
Without designing an entirely new enemy. And like, even though the Winged Knights kind of place similarly,
Mhm.
they didn't want to tip that hand yet. They needed to have them placed for lore reasons where they're placed.
Right.
So, yeah, like I can see it literally just being a gameplay consideration, which I don't like hold against From. It's just the series trains everyone to kind of not think of things in that sense.
Right.
But I think that might be the case here.
Yep. Jack writes, so the Grand Archive was a distinct turning point for me in this game. As a relative newcomer to the series, having only played Bloodborne before this, I was at a loss for a starting build. I immediately built strength using a claymore for 90% of the game. As mentioned by Gary in the Lothric Castle episode, my strength build started to become progressively weaker, and I began seeking a replacement for my beloved claymore. Let's see here. It was only halfway through this area that my prayers were answered, and one Ganksmake later, I found my new weapon, Onakiri and Ubadachi. Those are the kind of Dex twin swords that you get off of one of the D&D party guys. With this discovery and one try of that beautiful weapon art, I was hooked, and I finally had a reason to abandon my classical Dark Souls build in favor of a shieldless, aggressive build echoing my comfort zone of Bloodborne combat. My only gripe is that I wish that I had this experience sooner. Sure, I got to use this build on 3 of my favorite bosses in the series, those being the Princes, Soul of Cinder, and the Nameless King. The last part of this game felt so great with my new build, however, that it just felt a little too late. This speaks to the lack of early weapon variety in this game, as I just wish more builds were viable earlier in the game. It's only now on my New Game Plus run-through that I am enjoying the true extent of my favorite weapon in the game. I always remember the archives as a very distinct turning point in Dark Souls 3. However, I sadly have to attribute that more to the weapons and the items held within. It saddens me to know that I can't even attempt to speed run to the weapons, and I am doomed to have to sit through most of the game to get to the build that I really enjoy.
There's probably something that scratches that itch a little bit earlier.
Yeah, you get like the twin bandit daggers. Like those are really good. They have a fun weapon art associated with them.
Or kill the dancer. Like, put yourself through that and get the dancer twin swords, which like is a little bit different. That has magic damage and stuff, but that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
The thing I find, and I'd be curious if Jack has played the DLC, because for like gigantic Smashulon enemies, I'm finding my Dex build pretty unsatisfying.
Oh, wow.
If I can't combo, right? Like they don't get staggered. They have hyper armor. They swing gigantic axes. If I can't combo, what those fights end up being is me sticking and then dodging out of the way and then sticking again, which would be fine if it didn't take 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what weapon I'm using because I can't get off more than one hit. So if I was doing a weapon I can't make up the difference in multiple slashes. Like if I'm only doing one hit, I would prefer to do one hit that does more damage.
Yeah.
So I still feel like Dark Souls 3 is optimized for strength on the whole. For the dex weapon that I'm using now, like the Black Blade, does work fine for like regular style enemies.
Yeah.
Like things that I can stun. It works just fine.
Yeah.
But I'll be curious if Jack has a good experience or has a similar experience with the Axiolons from the DLC. Because I hate those motherfuckers. And it feels a lot. It feels like a big part of the build. My build is a big reason why they suck so bad.
Yeah. Well, it sucks to, you change lanes and then that lane stops too. And your old lane keeps moving.
It's like Dave Barry says, man. Like change a lane, and it's like
I was thinking more of the beginning of Office Space, but yeah.
Either or. The Degesser says the Grand Archives has a great example of one of the things I love about the Souls games: the ability to be goofy without breaking character. Dunking your head in wax is supremely silly, but it's presented as an element of the world and taken for granted, like the Mensis head cages or the old monk's headdress. A lesser game would try to justify it, but Souls just presents it as, of course, to protect yourself from dangerous knowledge, you cover your head in wax. On to sequence breaking. If you know what to do, you can get yourself up through the Dragon Slayer armor fight without ever beating Vort, but then you'll get to the Grand Archives and find them locked. The key to open the door spawns in front of the door once you've killed the other Lords of Cinder, but that seems like a really arbitrary and inelegant way of unlocking a door, doesn't it? Yes. If you clip through that door, you can proceed through the Grand Archives as normal. The skies are the usual Lothric yellow-green, and there's no pilgrim butterflies drifting around. The same is true once you get to the top and run across the bridge. You can even fight the Twin Princes before any other Lord of Cinder, and to top it off, you can put Lothric's ashes on the throne, and you still won't be able to travel to the final area. You'll have to get the rest of the ashes, even though there's no way in the base game you can get to Lothric's without them. What does this say to me? It tells me that originally you could sequence break all the way to fighting Lothric. Everything that enforces Lothric as the last Lord of Cinder is weird, arbitrary, and hacky, like Gothard's corpse appearing, or the way that you get teleported back to Lothric, which still happens even if you beat Lothric out of turn. Maybe the world was originally meant to be more like Dark Souls 2's Spokes. This is already running long, but I just wanted to mention how the domed archives remind me of Hagia Sophia, a Roman church built in honor of the divine aspect of knowledge.
Yeah.
I will put a picture of that in the show notes. I'm not familiar.
That's a very beautiful building. That is a good pull on that architecturally. Yeah. I agree. Everything about forcing Lothric to be the last one, like it makes sense from a kind of climax standpoint, right? A little bit the way that it's designed, but just the way that they implement it is real.
I mean, it's the game lacks a central antagonist. Yeah. And the way it is implemented is to suggest that Lothric is the central antagonist. Mm-hmm. And like instead, we've said this 1,000 times, but he is for the beginning and end of the game. Right. But not for the middle, in which we take a little side, like an Aldrich, side path. So I think you might be right that it was originally meant to be less linear, and it feels like band-aiding it up. Yeah. We actually need to have this thing. And then, not least of which, because the actual climax of the game is not a character or an antagonist that we've spent any time with the entire time. Right. Anyway, so it does feel like a last-ditch effort to have a Gwyn-style figure. Yeah. Let's have a pathetic boss that you actually care about, mm-hmm. that can tug at your heart while he hits you with a sword. And yeah. Yeah. And so it makes sense to me to have Lothric be last, specifically because of some of the stuff you mentioned in the episode itself. I don't know if I would have as much pathos or, if I would have as much sympathy for him if I didn't see how his situation was explicitly different from the previous ones, Yeah. Like that, sure. Yeah, that wouldn't land as hard if I didn't see that. So, yeah. Agreed there. Yeah. Yeah. Kilo writes, I'm pretty into this area. The verticality is complex in the right ways, but that gauntlet at the end is a real soul reaver, if you know what I mean. Just a bad thing? Is that what you mean? I think that's what he means. Yeah. This was also where I realized that I didn't understand a thing about the lore. I had thought that the pilgrim butterflies were the angels, which was such a horrific inversion of what I expected. Then big armored gold dudes show up, and I throw my hands back and just say, fuck it. Yeah. Yep. We also still don't know exactly what the angels are. there are probably multiple things that probably don't include the butterflies.
Right.
Because they are probably the pilgrims, which is even just the pilgrim, like the if they are the pilgrims, which they probably are, which to me makes sense just based on what we know. It's like they can't have a single one telling somebody a story like that doesn't feel like it would have the narrative weight because there are dozens and dozens of them.
Right.
So like these can't be the angels. They're like literally everywhere. if Lothric was fighting with the angels, like why weren't they fighting with the pilgrims that are literally like littered all over Lothric, High Castle?
Yeah.
So I think that would have been cool if they were the angels, but again, everything connects to everything.
Yeah.
Because Dark Souls 3,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a bummer.
Raising the stakes for DLC too.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Krusty. So moving on to just fun. Darren says, one of the things I've seen while playing this entry in the Souls series is how thoroughly the influence of Beksinski is in everything. You can see it in the decaying orange color palette, the imposing sarcophagus that housed Aldrich, the lanky, almost luminous hollows, and the pitiful hollow trees on the high wall. However, nowhere is that influence more evident than in the pilgrim butterflies. My first read on them gave me the impression of ghostly burning dragons, and their positioning around the Dragon Slayer armor made me think that they were possessing it. My mental canon of the dragons punishing the very armor that had hounded their kind to near extinction by forcing it into service unending was dashed the second I looked up some screenshots for a closer look at them. These things are right out of a Beksinski painting. The odd coloring, the motif of entirely too many bones as a suggestion of something else, in this case wings, and the sense of a strange and very tragic hell crafted specifically for these beings are all very prominent. I want to know what these things are so badly. Are they the next stage of the pilgrims that were sprouting into trees? Are they the nascent form of dragons before they develop their entropy warding scales? Are they the third option, beyond the scope of light and beyond the reach of dark, bringing the cycle full circle? Any of those questions aside, I'm sure everyone else is asking them. As I'm sure everyone else is asking them, the influence of the relatively obscure Polish painter is abundantly clear to the point where it rides the line between homage and outright theft. As a fan of the man's work, however, I benefit on either side of the line, my own third option. The haunting expression of Beksinski's work deserves more recognition and callbacks. If that takes the form of a dying world that embodies it, heart and soul, that we can run through it and experience this tragedy up close, so much the better for everyone.
Yeah. Here's a secret for everybody. Mention Beksinski in a letter, and I'll probably put it in the notes.
I'm gonna quash that right now.
Yep.
We've talked about Beksinski a bunch.
Yeah, I know.
Like I'm not calling out.
Yeah, I was also joking about that too. But like just specifically, like as we've talked about this, this sums up like the Dark Souls 3 kind of connection at the very least very well. And so
I think this is the definitive word on Beksinski.
Yep.
And Darren definitely should have written this in. This is very well said, but like I think we've been bringing Beksinski up since like the High Wall.
Yep.
Like when you first look out on that color palette and stuff, like this game is very, very much in that wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And we're both fans. It comes up on Watch Out for Fireballs. It comes up relatively often.
Yep.
So again, that's not me saying like, why'd you bring it up? Because this is really well written and you're right.
Yeah.
But it is, I think you're right on the money.
Yep.
Is my point. I realize I don't have like I wonder what like the definitive like Beksinski art book is.
I have it. It's very expensive.
Okay.
I got it like at the very tail end of like it had been out of print for a while. I had to order it special from like 3 Barnes and Nobles over. This is like back in like late high school. Got it for like $30. Now on Amazon it ranges between $150 all the way up to $500 depending on the binding that you get. But it is very good. It's called The Fantastic Art of Beksinski. I don't know if there's another one. It's kind of bigger than coffee table book size, but it has kind of like the entire span of his career in it.
Yeah, I will have to take a look and see if there's any other collections.
Yeah.
Other than that, because that is 100% more than I'm ever going to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's a lot of money.
It is.
But it looks really, we're like I said, we are both fans of his work. Yeah, so I think that's it for every responses. If you have anything to say about Archdragon Peak, or the Endgame or the DLC, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yes.
If you're as separate messages.
Yes. If you're writing in about multiple areas, just please like say, hey, here's my DLC thoughts. Here's Arch Dragon thoughts. Just because that makes it easier to file. If I have to remember to go back into an older thing, you're probably going to have it lost. So that is fair warning.
Yeah. The easier you make it for us, the more likely your things are to be read out loud.
Yep.
And that's generally true.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's probably about it. If you want to, this is after Duckstream, or this is during Duckstream. This comes out.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
While you listen to this, tune into Kole.
Yep.
Like Kole's playing Resident Evil 1 remake like right now. Probably when you see this, maybe Resident Evil 2. Check it out.
Yeah. Watch me lose my mind. But could go that is at duckfeed.tv/duckstream or on our Twitch page. Like this is hot off the presses. If you're getting this on early release, you can go watch Gary and Brayton and Nick lose their minds. So
yes,
yeah,
we will be flipping out. So if you and like as we said, we'll make admin and stuff short. If you like this network, if you like this show, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/duckfeed.tv. Very, very much appreciated.
Yeah. I think that's everything. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. No deleted scenes. Didn't work out timing wise, but that's okay. So thank you guys very much for listening. And until next time, boy.
Yeah, it's hard. There's almost no dialogue anymore.
Yeah, we're running out of man, I didn't really put that together, but that's 100% true that because when we put together our episodes, we try to find a character talking about the area where we're going to talk about, and that dries up.
Yep.
Real hard at the end of this. So, so just until next time, go well.
Yep.
Be good. Recover from your surgeries.
Long days and pleasant nights. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see you in a week.
Bye.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon